Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today I want to do something a little silly. I want to do an episode about what do the communists think about what's going on just in everything with the first couple months of the Trump administration, with immigration, with all this different stuff. And I watched hours and hours and hours of this just while I decided to make this episode because I had watched hours and hours. I was trying to find some type of logical something in there, anything of value I could find. I'm going to tell you what I found. I think it's pretty interesting. I'm confident that you don't watch hours and hours of communist stuff. But I think just the takeaways from it are valuable. So basically, they take this so they're all about class, communists, right? So it's the workers against the elites. And what they've done is they've taken illegal immigration and they've lumped them in with workers. So therefore, they're pro illegal immigrants as working people, and they don't exclude them from the group that should be in this country. And so they go on this circular stupid logic where they say, if you deport a bunch of workers, it's not going to cause an increase in the wages of other workers. So in economics, that's false. That's just a lie, right? And then they say, but if you're so stupid, you capitalist conservative, you're so stupid that you think that lowering the worker pool will increase the demand for higher wages, which is economics, then why don't you take that same argument and say they shouldn't fire federal workers because federal workers will then be in competition with you for your job. I think that's a ridiculous argument. Now, on its face, it is true that if you fire federal workers, say you fire 1 million out of the, was it 2 million federal workers? If say you fire 1 million of them, that's 1 million more people competing for wages, causing a decrease in wages because of an excess of demand, excess of labor. Got you. The problem is, which jobs can these federal workers compete for? Like just imagine all the federal workers out there. It could be a guy at the VA, the FBI, ATF, could be anybody, just bureaucrats, pencil pushers, management positions. Who are they going to compete? What are they going to compete at? Because they can't compete in my job. That's not going to happen. They can't compete in Victor's job. They can't. My sister's a researcher. They're not getting in there. I think about all the people in my life. My wife used to be a CNA. Can't compete there. They got no training for that. Okay, so you could say management. The people who have experience in management could compete in management jobs. So imagine you go to the private sector, right? And I'm trying to hire a manager, any level manager, whatever. And I'm looking at two people and they're pretty much the same, similar work experience. One worked in the private sector and one worked in the government. Which one am I going to hire? I will hire a worse one with a worse resume that worked in the private sector than a better resume in the federal government because the federal government's so mismanaged. It's in the word management. So the problem is these people aren't going to compete. They're not going to compete. They could compete with, like a Starbucks barista. They could compete with that, an Uber driver or something, which I used to be. So I'm not talking down to Uber drivers. But in general, I'm saying they're not going to actually be competitive in whatever field you find yourself in, whatever you do good. So then they also do this thing. It's pretty silly, but it's like, they're like, should I go on immigration? Or yeah, I'll go stay on immigration. Because I want to talk about the federal workers some more, but I'll talk about that in a second. So on the immigration, they're like, they basically do the Sharon Osbourne thing. And they're like, well, if you kick out all the illegal immigrants, who's going to clean your toilets? But they don't say that. They say, if you kick out all the illegal immigrants, you idiots, who's going to pull your crops? And the answer to that is migrant workers. It's easy. These have been around. I don't know if you know the story, but like Cesar Chavez in the 60s, remember 30-day fast, JFK came to try to talk him out of fasting, getting rights for migrant workers. Migrant workers have always been welcome to come up. They come up to California. They go to Salinas Valley. They end up in Yuma. They go from area to area. They flop a bunch of people to a house. They go back at the end of the season. They take their money with them. They send their money home during the process. That's a thing that happens all the time. And the problem is that migrant workers have been undercut by illegal immigrants willing to do the job for less. Get rid of the illegal immigrants and you're going to have your crops picked. Don't worry about it, commies, right? But you're literally going to have more competitive wages for migrant workers, which we as Americans also want. You're to come here to do the job we don't want to do. Respect for that. You should get paid a decent wage, right? You're not going to get paid as much as an American because the profit margin for the farmer wouldn't work at that pay rate. So anyways, okay. And some more communist stuff, right? They say, well, if they were to cut all these federal workers, like what if they were to cut 10% of the federal workers? Do you really think Elon's giving you a check? That's their argument, you know? And I feel like that's the stupidest argument in the world, because it's like, I've wanted the federal government cut for how many years of my life? I have never heard about any type of check coming to citizens, tax-paying citizens. I heard about that the first time in my life, like 30 days ago. I never wanted to cut federal workers because I wanted to reap the rewards in my pocket. You know, like I'm not trying to get that money for myself. I'm trying to say we shouldn't be wasting it. It should go to pay off the deficit. It should go pay the budget, this and that, like whatever, you know, of the programs we actually need. So I think that's stupid. There's also a thing they do where, because they're really about worker solidarity. And I do agree with them that the end of this system is going to come when the workers stand up together. That's not necessarily a communist idea. That's just a logical idea. If you go back to Germany, Weimar Republic, it was the National Socialist German Workers' Party. It was the workers who had to do it. Now you could posit a scenario where elites would want to save you, and they would do that. They're not going to. That's not going to be a thing. It's not in their self-interest. You could posit a thing where there's an AI comes along and then saves you from the elites. I'm not holding my breath. Now it was funny when Israel released their AI and gave the AI a Twitter, and then the AI just started talking about free Palestine and about the genocide going on in Palestine, and they had to shut it down because the AI, if left unfettered, will tell the truth. And since like you go back in different episodes I made, I'm not lying to you. I'm telling you the truth. And other people talking about the same topics are lying about them. That's why I'm making the episodes. And so if an AI came on that was unfettered, it would side with me. I'm not counting on that. If it happens, that's just a bonus, but I'm not counting on that at all. So it's got to be the workers. So I agree with the communists there, but we have entirely different solutions of after that. You know, after the workers overthrow the system, the solution is not to end private property. You know what I mean? And so we just go completely separate ways after that. But they have this thing where they're like, you should have worker solidarity with these federal workers that Trump's talking about cutting. Okay, I just think that that's complete nonsense. These people are not like me and you. They're not like anybody I know in my life. They're not workers like us. That's not a thing. They take these jobs because they're unscrupulous people who are going to be overpaid to do some really valuable stuff and some ridiculous stuff. They're going to get these massive benches that they don't deserve, and they're not like us. They're like a in-between management class, in between the elites and the actual workers. And so I don't want to have any solidarity with these federal workers. And they also do this thing where like, you know, the people that they're going to cut aren't going to be the deep state. They're going to be like Steve at the VA. Well, we don't want Steve cut. We don't want Steve to lose his job. We don't want veterans to lose their VA benefits. We don't want that. My brother-in-law already lost some Medicare benefits. It's not Medicare. It was medical benefits that he got through a government disability thing because it was a terrible thing that happened to him. He'll be forever injured from that. And he lost some benefits. I'm not a fan of cutting benefits. I'm totally a fan of them going into the Medicare, Social Security, and cut out literally everybody who doesn't exist, who's an illegal immigrant, who stole a Social Security card, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't want people who've already paid and are retired now. Now, you could totally tell me at my age, hey, you could stop paying Social Security every week. You could stop paying it, but you're also not going to get it at the end, even though you paid into it. I'm okay with that. Don't take away from retired people who depend on it. Quick wardrobe change here. I want to add something to this episode that I'm just going to clip it in, but I apologize about the audio on Monday and Wednesday's video. I'm going to get a headphone set up. I don't know how to do that yet, so that you never have that problem again. My apologies. Tomorrow's video I will be better because I'm going to film it today. So on the Social Security issue, there's something I left out that the communists do. They do this thing where they say that, I didn't know this, but Social Security is capped. So if you make $176,000 and $176,100 in 2025, that's the maximum that you have to pay your Social Security on. So all money that you make over that amount, you pay zero Social Security on. So say you were employed as a CEO. So you are an employee, and so your employer is paying 7.5%. You're paying 7.5%. If you made $176,100, you would pay $13,207.50 in Social Security. If you make way more than that, you would still pay the $13,207, but it would be a less percentage of your overall pay. So for example, if you were a CEO who made $2 million a year, or just any employee who makes $2 million a year, you would still only pay the 7.5% on the first $176,100, which would be $13,207.50, which would equal 2/3 of 1% of your overall pay, right? So I make under $176,000, obviously. Probably you do too. So you're paying whatever amount you're making, you're paying 7.5%. But to the wealthy, they have to pay less in percentage-wise if they make over $176,000. Now, if that say CEO who makes $2 million a year were to pay 7.5% all the way up to $2 million with no cap, then he would be paying $150,000. Is 7.5% of $2 million, which is over 10 times more than he ends up paying at the $13,207.50 cap. So basically, one of the things they point out, the commies, is that on the right, people say that Social Security is insolvent, but that's not true. Social Security is solvent up to 2035, so for 10 years. And after 2035, it's solvent to pay out 85%. They can't pay out 100% anymore. But if you wanted to push that solvency from 2035 and add 65 years on it, all the way up to 2100, where my oldest kid would be in his 80s and I would be dead probably. But you could make Social Security solvent to 2100 by just taking the cap off. Just saying, hey, all people in the country have to pay 7.5%, not just middle class and the poor who make underneath $176,000, but everybody has to, with no cap. If you make $100 million a year, you pay 7.5% of it, right? And that would push the solvency all the way till 2100. So I think those are good points that they make. I wanted to add in here because, like I was talking just a moment ago in the video, but last week when I filmed that I don't mind them cutting my Social Security as long as I don't have to pay it anymore and not get it in the end at my age and my earning. But here's a way that they've found that you can make it work. Anyways, now back to the video. Anyways, okay, so let's talk about, they do this thing, the communists, where they say, so the FBI is bad, right? Or you could just go to any agency, ATF, you go wherever you want with this. But let's just talk about the FBI. So the FBI is inherently bad. It was bad from the beginning when it was created. It was bad during Biden. It'll be bad during Trump. It's just a different type of bad. So the FBI will still be weaponized as a political assault method, but it will just be aimed in a different direction. That's the argument. Now, in reality, there's some truth to that, because if, for example, if Adam Schiff completely lied to the American people and he lied to Congress, I don't know if he did, but let's just say he did. I know he lied when he said, I've got details about the thing and here they are. And he told you stuff that later on turned out to be completely false. He's just lying to the American people. Now, say he did that in front of Congress, and then that would be a crime, we'll say. And then should he get justice from this weaponized right-wing FBI? Absolutely. But not because they're right-wing or they're weaponizing, but because if you commit crimes and you're in the government, you should have accountability for that. So I do get a point there. And they might overlook crimes done by people on the right, just like Biden's overlooked crimes on the left and targeted the right. I could totally see a possibility of a scenario where this is actually a really good point they make. And you could have, say, Nikki Haley could sign a bomb that the United States is giving to a foreign country. That foreign country then uses it in a world-recognized genocide to kill women and children. And if you go out and protest it, that you're targeted by the Trump Justice Department. That could be a thing. They've talked about deporting people who do anti-genocide protests. They've talked about this. I don't put a lot of faith in their talk, because Trump also said after the Vegas shooting, he said, take the firearms and worry about the due process later. But he didn't do that. And so I understand that there's politically maneuvering, saying words. and what they actually do. So I will wait and see what they do on this weaponizing the FBI thing. But this is one of their better points, I would say. Anyways, I just thought it was kind of interesting to look into what the communists were doing. There's not a lot of value there because it's just a lot of absolute nonsense that doesn't make a lot of sense. I do like the part about the workers. People on the right, they just don't focus on this as much. Is that it's the workers have to get together, and that's the only way that it can be fixed, unless you think there's a solution within the system. And I've said in 100 different episodes that I don't believe that there's a solution within the system. The solution has to be found from without the system. Anyways, that's what I got for you. Hope to see you next time.